Hello there, my name is Mark Barnabas, your data protection pal, and it's time again for fortnightly updates on data protection and cyber security. So this week we've got a really interesting updates for you, including a very big news that just happened. So to all my friends who are celebrating Deepavali, especially those who are Indians, happy Diwali. And by the way, the biggest online grocer in India has just been hacked. 20 million users' data has been stolen and sold on a dark web for $40,000. Now, this is one of the biggest breaches in India, and this comes just before the data protection law in India is going to be implemented. So those of you who are doing internet business should really look into data protection and cyber security, because it could affect the way you run business tomorrow. So what else is new? So the question is, just after the breach, this article came out written by a few lawyers, and they are asking if India is really serious about data protection. Well, you can read about their comments, but for me, I believe India would take steps to implement their data privacy law, but it would take some time, being a huge country. After all, India is like the biggest democratic country in the world, and I'm sure there'll be challenges, but I think they are serious. I mean, also we all know India has the best brains when it comes to IT, isn't it? So we'll see. China has also mentioned about their data privacy law, so I'm sure India will follow suit. So what else do we have in line this week? Back to Singapore. Cyber attacks on SMEs are on the rise. Yes, and this is absolutely true. And cyber hackers have found that many small and medium enterprises are subject to cyber attacks. Why? Because they have got very little protection against cyber attackers. And SMEs typically look for one thing only: sales and profits, and sometimes these cybersecurity areas can be overlooked. And in fact, another sector that takes data security quite lightly could be the non-profit organizations, which really worries me a lot, because non-profit organizations also hold a lot of personal data and other data. And non-profit organizations have members, they have employees, they have beneficiaries, volunteers, and maybe members of the public. So you can imagine there's so much data held by these organizations, and really I want to advocate that non-profit organizations and SMEs really start getting their act together when it comes to protecting their personal data, and also to raise their level of protection against cyber attacks. And it has to start now. Another article is this. You would also want to read about this, because finally, after a long while, the United Nations has finally issued a joint statement regards to data protection and privacy during the COVID-19 response. So this is an article that really talks a lot about how countries should manage personal data with regards to especially contact tracing. I remember during when the COVID-19 first hit the world and announced to the world that this is a real global pandemic, many countries were debating about this contact tracing issue, where personal data is being collected by organizations, public officers, and even everywhere they're collecting personal data. So the big question is, what's going to happen to this personal data? So I myself have been advising many SMEs and retailers that all these personal data they collect because of contact tracing must be destroyed usually after 14 days. So just in case, just for safety, we keep it for 21 days. That's my advice. But again, it's unsolicited, and do whatever you need to do to comply with your local legal obligations and regulations. And news from the other part of the world, Canada. one of the countries that I love to read about with regards to data protection, because the PACC is really one of the leading organizations talk about data protection. And in fact, if you didn't know, PIPEDA, the Canadian data privacy regulator, is one of the first regulators to come up with legislation. And finally, I'm sure the regulators are really happy, although they're the first to come out with regulations, but they are really very poor on enforcement because they don't have a lot of power. And I heard someone telling me this, that they're very envious of the Singapore regulators because they can just enforce $1 million fines. So finally, I congratulate my friends in Canada that they now have more teeth to enforce data protection in their country. And finally, news in Singapore. Singapore is going to propose better protection over the citizens' personal data. Oh, that's me. And so I believe that in Singapore and the rest of the world, personal data protection is going to be a trend, especially beyond this COVID-19. So let's work together, SMEs, non-profit organizations, and MNCs, to work together to protect all our personal data, because there's one thing that doesn't change. In fact, it gets more dangerous. Scammers and hackers don't stop working even during COVID-19. So let's work together to protect ourselves as well as our personal data. Educate yourself, educate your team, and let's work together towards a better tomorrow. So my name is Mark Barnabas, and please like this video and subscribe, and feel free to view more videos on my YouTube page or even Facebook page. So please be safe, take care, and this is the month of Christmas. Wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas. Season's greetings, and God bless.